Hello and welcome back. I'm here to do my February wrap up and I'm going to start with a disclaimer. Half the books I said I was going to read at the beginning of February I have not read. I kind of went massively off-piste with some ebooks, which I will get to, but yeah, I think I'm going to drop doing any kind of this is what I'm going to read this month videos because clearly I cannot stick to them. So we're just going to do wrap-ups and reviews and whatever I feel like doing, and if I don't feel like doing anything, I won't do anything. Anyway, I'm going to start off with the book that I was reading at the beginning of the month, which is Trisha Sullivan's Occupy Me, which is a high-octane, high-concept sci-fi thriller type thing about an angel who is not an angel called Pearl, who has had a component of herself stolen by a man possessed by himself and has been stranded on Earth. I loved it. I loved it. Trisha Sullivan is a gem of the genre, and if you love science fiction, you should be reading Trisha Sullivan, and that's all there is to it. The next book that I read was Barrett Ellingson's Not Dark Yet. It's about climate change, and I feel like it's sort of trying to aim toward people who might still be on the fence about the whole idea of climate change, because there are people, bizarrely, who are sceptical about it when it's actually happening all around us. But I feel it misses the mark massively. The stuff where it's shown how climate change is going to affect people, that stuff is great, and if it was just kept to that, I feel like it could have reached an audience that was still sceptical or still maybe on the fence or still didn't quite understand what climate change is and the effects that it will have. As it is, the pace that it's written, and with this activist slash animal behaviouralist in it giving all these lectures, I feel like the people who are going to read it are the people who already know about it, so it's kind of going to just be preaching to the converted. The next one that I read was Jungle Horses by Scott Adlerberg. Again, it had a really lovely central idea and it kind of completely missed it, and whilst the story was interesting, it did not grab me. Now, where I went off piece slightly this month is that I started reading romances again. I read romance novels because they are brilliantly written. There are some authors out there doing such amazing work in the genre. I don't like lovey-dovey bullshit or sentimental crap. I really don't. But I do like really well written books with great storylines and great characters, and you'll find a lot of that in romance. There are some amazing writers out there. It really is an underappreciated genre despite the fact that it's so huge, and I think that's because a lot of women write it and women writers tend to be sneered at, so there you go. Anyway, I have been reading this month Essie Jakes. She writes as Stephanie Tyler, and under Stephanie Tyler, which she started writing out as, that's her actual name, she writes male-female romances, but as Essie Jakes she writes male-male. And I have been reading quite a lot of hers, but mainly I've been reading her Hell and High Water series, which is about a group of guys who work for a sort of mercenary agency that helps people in need as well as makes money by looking after celebrities and stuff. And it's not about the work that they do, it's about the guys who work for it and their complicated pasts and their interactions with each other. The characters are amazing, their interactions are incredible, the storylines are so high octane and so clever and so cool. Just really fantastic, and she's had a tough year, so the fourth book in the series that was supposed to come out in December is not yet out. But if you do love any kind of romance, male, female, male, male, she doesn't do female, female, I don't think, which is a shame, but maybe she's had no cool ideas for female, female, who knows. But her writing is amazing, so go and find her and go and read her, because after the year she's had, I'm sure she could do with some more support, and I certainly will be singing her praises to anyone who I meet who likes romance, as I am doing here. The other thing that I've been reading this month, romance-wise, is Regencies. I love Regencies. I grew up reading Georgette Heyer. My favourite Georgette Heyer is the Grand Sophie. I do not like Jane Austen. I like the movies of the books rather than the books. I got obsessed with the Regency period in my sort of mid-teens and did a lot of reading about the actual era and the history of it. So what I like in a Regency, as well as, you know, really good characters and a really good storyline and not ridiculous over-the-top heaving bosoms and declarations of love that make me want to throw up my pelvic bone, I do love complex characters, I love proper historical context, and I love wit, because the thing about the Regency period coming off the 17th century was the wit, the repartee, and there is just some fantastic Regency writing out there that captures the essence of that so beautifully. And one of the people who I was reading who doesn't quite do that, but she does write a brilliant Regency, is Elisa Braden, and I've really been enjoying some of hers. I mean, I've read others this month, but hers particularly caught my attention. So I would highly recommend her if you like a Regency romance in your life, for whatever reason, whether you like it for the romance or whether you like it for the history and the fun. Now then, on to the physical books at last. I did read one of the physical books I was supposed to read. Go me! Sebastian Faulks is supposed to be this amazing bloody author. I disagree. Suffice it to say, she irritated me, the men in it irritated me, the ideas behind it irritated me, the whole thing irritated me, Sebastian. Irritated. This is my irritated face. Yeah, so that was not good. I suppose it was written okay though, but nowhere near the amount of nonsense I've heard said about him. Nowhere near. Anyway, next book that I've read is this one. I have been looking for this one for cheap for ages because there are huge divided opinions about it. There are people who think it is amazing, the best thing they've ever read, and then there's people who think that it's, disappointing. And because of all these completely conflicting reports about the damn thing, I was like, I am not buying this for more than £1. So I've been looking for it on Kindle deals. Turns out I found it in a pound shop in hardback. So yeah, and I see what people mean about not entirely being impressed by it. I kind of felt like the one thing that it had that really separated it from everything else in the genre, it completely underused, and that was the creatures. It is pretty much clarified in this that there is definitely something that people are seeing, some creature or thing that is sending them insane, and animals as well. So the fact that he completely failed to utilise them, except in a sort of... The best horror movies, I think, are where the thing that is terrifying is mainly off screen. But in this kind of book, where it's going into a subgenre, the dystopic fiction subgenre, that has been so overdone, if you have got an interesting, unusual element to your dystopia, you need to be using it. You need to utilise it in order to lift your book out of the mire of being same old, same old. Now, yes, the characters in this were great. Yes, the dynamics were great. Yes, her emotional landscape was great. But it would have been amazing if he'd somehow managed to integrate the creatures into it more. I felt like this went in circles. She went from one group situation that wasn't great to another group situation that wasn't great. And it was all about how people are shit. But the fact of the matter is, I think we're all aware by now, unless, we've all been living in a fucking bird box, that people are pretty shit. And when it comes to sort of a dystopian future, should one occur, and considering the whole climate change thing, it's likely to, people are going to be fucking crap to each other. That's a given. So if you're going to be writing something like this, even if you're going to be writing a really interesting take on the whole people being shit to each other and people having to survive under horrifying circumstances thing, you really need to be bringing something else that elevates it. And he had that something else and he totally underutilized it, for me anyway. And yeah, I felt like this could have gone to amazing places and it didn't. So I was quite disappointed ultimately. Anyway, final is a graphic novel, and I very rarely read graphic novels. I get bored, there's not enough dialogue for me, there's not enough narrative, there's no narrative pretty much, and that's just like, I'll watch a film if I want to see something that's entirely visual. I'm not really into this sort of format. I am trying, but this was not a good place to start. I can see why it's interesting. I like the whole concept of slashers, people who die having, killed in a specific situation and come back to life as a slasher. They go after kids who are doing illicit things like having sex and smoking and drinking and having parties and stuff. That's cool. What I don't like is that the central character is presented initially as having to kill her own mum when her mum comes back from the dead after being a serial killer who was killing loads of kids at her school for being nasty to her or not giving her enough attention. So her mum comes back from the dead as a slasher, she kills her mum with her bare hands, and then the rest of the time in all the other stories she either ends up useless, unconscious or overwhelmed and not wearing very much. When it comes to this kind of thing, especially when it comes to, the fact that she looks like most women in the world don't look like, you kind of just want to tie up all the guys that were involved and drop them into a volcano somewhere, because it's just a little bit boring. It gets to the point where it's like, yes, we're aware that you fetishize the female body to a ridiculous extent. Yes, we're aware that despite the fact that you fetishize the female body, you still actually look down your nose at womankind in general and don't really give them any credence for intelligence or autonomy or anything. We're aware of that. There's no need to keep writing it. Perfectly aware of that by now. So yeah, while this had some interesting ideas in it and some cool characters, I like the guy she goes around killing people with. He's funny. but I just kind of felt like she was totally underused, which just... So yeah, this was not my kind of thing. It irritated the living shit out of me. And yeah, I'm going to try some more stuff. I've got some more stuff. But this was not a good place to start. Even though I can see the appeal to a certain extent, I wish that the central character was a little bit less stereotypical fetish girl. Just gets frustrating being a woman sometimes. It really does. Anyway, that is all the books that I have read this month. I mean, there are one or two here or there that I haven't talked about because I haven't got enough time. I've already gone on for 20 minutes. At the moment, I am in the middle of reading 2 of the books that I was supposed to read at the beginning of this month, Bring Up the Bodies and Gutshot. I am halfway through Gutshot and a quarter of the way through Bring Up the Bodies. Well, less than a quarter, about a fifth of the way through Bring Up the Bodies. So I'll probably be doing individual reviews on those because it's just easier. And yeah, that's that for now. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.